Part 68. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 671. Chapter 671, Who Beat Whom? The listener is interested. Xiaoling's heart suddenly tightened, and she subconsciously raised her head and glanced at Li Lei. Unexpectedly, when I met the man's deep eyes, under the blurred shade of the trees, his expression was unpredictable, and he hesitated to speak. The child didn't know what it was like to be sad, so he jumped up and ran away to play. Xiaoling turned around to leave, but Li Lei stopped her. Xiaoling, I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but can you give me another chance to pursue you again and make up for my mistakes? Make up for the demerit? With Su Tang here, it would never be possible. She suddenly felt a sense of sadness. Li Lei, you still don't understand what a woman needs. Money, power, these are actually not important. What is important is that you want to have the person you love and stay together forever. This is the simplest and most luxurious thing in the world. She turned around and left. The next banquet went well. At the end, Xiao Hui made many friends as he wished. They all agreed to get together to play together next time, and then said goodbye reluctantly. Looking at Xiao Hui's happy smiling face, Xiaoling felt that all the hard work was worth it. However, she thought her life would go on peacefully like this. Unexpectedly, she saw the news headlines the next day. At the lawn banquet, the young host Ye Xiaowei had a conflict with the guest Li Rui and openly led the children to isolate Li Rui. A very sensational title, attracted countless people to read. In the article, there are two pictures. One is Xiao Hui holding a water gun and spraying water all over Li Rui. A group of children stood beside Xiao Hui and watched indifferently. The other picture is Xiao Hui pressing Li Rui's hand. Beating him on the ground, Li Rui in the picture is covered in blood. The text was taken out of context, portraying Xiao Hui as a little bully, while Li Rui turned into a being who was being bullied. Xiaoling was very angry. Isn't this confusing right and wrong? The comments below made her even more angry. Many netizens who did not know the truth said, a child without a father and a mother is a child without a father and a mother. Why is this Xiaowei so uneducated? He can really do anything. He was very sarcastic and abusive towards Xiao Hui. Public opinion is still overwhelmingly sympathetic to Li Rui, offering all kinds of condolences. Xiaoling couldn't stand it anymore and called Lin Yunan. Why is it reported in such a mess? You should find a way to take care of it. Lin Yunan also read the report and sneered, those reporters are not too big a deal to watch the excitement. However, the direction of public opinion is so obvious. I suspect that there are people behind it who are adding fuel to the flames to ruin your and Xiao Hui's reputation. Xiaoling was stunned. Who? What are the benefits of doing this? Benefits? There are many benefits, Lin Yunan still sneered. For example, if you fall out with Li Lei over your child, or if you make people think that you can't teach your children well, you are not worthy of being a mother, and you are not worthy of rekindling with Li Lei. Xiaoling was shocked when she heard this. Su Tang. At last you have made some progress over the years, and you are not too stupid, Lin Yunan said. She actually takes advantage of children. It's terrible, Xiaoling murmured, and then got very angry. Being in the entertainment industry, she was prepared to be slandered anytime and anywhere. However, Xiao Hui was different. Why should such a young child be involved in these ups and downs among adults? You can touch her. Touch her, child, no. Xiaoling's eyes turned cold. I want to fight back. Fight back? How to fight back? Lin Yunan asked. There are so many celebrities here and so many pairs of eyes watching, they all know the truth, Xiaoling said. Ha ha, Lin Yunan smiled. What does he mean? Xiaoling was very irritable. Lin Yunan leaned her body, entered a few keywords into her computer, and searched for a few news items. Look, This is what you call the testimony given by those celebrities. Xiaoling went over to take a look. Several big figures who had been interviewed recently said in unison, as for some differences between children, they will not comment. How could this happen? Xiaoling was very unhappy. Lin Yunan laughed again. Ms. Yeah, you are a billionaire by fume, yes, but what about Mr. Li? His current net worth is probably many times higher than yours. There are rumors that he defeated Li Feng abroad, becoming the well-deserved first heir among the grandsons of the Li family. Do you know what this means? It means that with just a move of his fingers, he can crush you and most of the people present that day like ants. In this case, how can she expect those celebrities to speak for her? Those who can become big shots are all human beings, so there is no need to offend Li Lei because of her. Xiaoling also figured out the twists and turns and gritted her teeth angrily. I should have kicked him out immediately. It's too late to say anything now, Lin Yunan said lazily. I advise you to go home and see Xiaohui, and don't let him be hurt by public opinion. I want to calm public opinion, Xiaoling said. I suggest you wait. Lin Yunan was still lazy. Why? Xiaoling felt that she couldn't wait and was furious. How can we wait for this kind of thing? Being alone will be harmful to Xiaohui. Don't you like Li Lei? Lin Yunan said. It's a good opportunity to see what he can do, take a postgraduate examination, and decide whether to get back together in the future. Who said I like him? Xiaoling was very fierce. Even if she still had a good impression of Li Lei before, now that Xiao Hui's incident has caused a disturbance, that good impression has disappeared without a trace. She almost yelled, he is a bad person. I will never get back together with him. Lin Yunan shrugged. Whatever you want, he said this, but thought in his heart, women always mean what they say. She still wears the amulet that Li Lei gave him. Who are she lying to when she says she doesn't like him anymore? However, he didn't bother to expose her. As an agent, he is not her emotional counselor. Whether they get back together or not, it's up to her. Lin Yunan wandered out. Xiaoling was sulking alone in the company for a while, so she took the car home to accompany Xiaohui. As soon as the car arrived at the gate of the community, a group of people gathered around it. They were reporters. They all set up long guns and short cannons and asked, Ms. Yeah, I heard that your child injured Mr. Li's child. Is that true? I heard that your child has not received etiquette training before and has social difficulties. I heard that he is unsociable and autistic. Questions came to her like a barrage of questions. She had a splitting headache and told the driver, drive quickly. The red Porsche, which was blocked at the entrance of the community and struggled to moved in bit by bit at a turtle's speed. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 672. Chapter 672. Pei Xian's visit. She breathed a sigh of relief after entering the community. The security measures here are very good, no matter how many paparazzi there are outside, they can't get in. She returned to the villa and walked around the study very anxiously. After a long time, she finally thought of something and took out her mobile phone to make a call. Hello, Mr. Long? Is this? Mr. Long was the one who was punished that day. Xiaoling begged the father of the child. Rui broke the water gun, trying to persuade him to testify on the phone, proving that Xiaohui was simply helping other children repair the water gun and was not deliberately targeting Li Rui. Unexpectedly, Mr. Long said, Ms. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Long is still young. I don't want him to be involved in these messy news. Please forgive us for not being able to testify. Xiaoling was very angry. She understood that these were all polite words, and the real reason was that Mr. Long did not dare to offend the Li family. However, she had no choice but to put a knife to someone's neck and force them to tell the truth. She threw her phone angrily. There was a noise outside the door. She turned around and saw a little child dragging along pajamas, rubbing his eyes and walking towards her, calling softly, "Sister." Xiaoling's heart softened in an instant. She suppressed all her anger, and knelt down to look at him. "Little Xiaowai," she said, "are you awake? This child has the habit of taking a nap and is very well behaved." The child nodded his head and stretched out his hand for her to hold. Xiaoling smiled and hugged him. Xiaowai asked inarticulately, "Sister, what are you doing?" "Sister is not doing anything," Xiaoling said. There were some things she didn't want to tell her children, so she changed the subject. "What would Xiaowai want to eat tonight?" "My sister asked the nanny to do it." "Be good, and I'll play with you after my sister is done." As expected, Xiaowai nodded obediently and struggled to get off the ground from her arms. "Sister, I'm busy first." The nanny knocked on the door. "Miss." "What's wrong?" Xiaoling asked. The nanny said, "Mr. Pei is here and wants to see you." "Pei Zion? What is he here for?" Xiaoling was a little confused, so she asked the nanny to let him in, and then went downstairs towards the living room. In the living room, it was indeed the tall man standing. In the midsummer weather, he was wearing a light grey thin shirt. He looked gentle and elegant, and looked very stable. He raised his head and looked at her walking down the escalator, with a trace of tenderness in his eyes. "Xiaoling." She stopped a few steps away from him and asked, "Why are you here?" "A few days ago, the emperor just bought a scenic area and developed it into a film and television city. I have been busy there for a long time, and I brought you some local products back," he said, shaking his hands and not knowing famous wild fruit. Xiaoling said, "Thank you." She ordered the nanny to take the wild fruits. He then said, "I have something else to do, and I'll talk to you another day." He euphemistically gave the eviction order. Pei Zion didn't mind, but he didn't leave. He said, "I read the news report." Xiaoling was slightly startled. Pei Zion continued, "Let me help you with this matter. Give me the photos of the banquet." Xiaoling was in dire straits when she heard that someone could help, but she asked for help. She didn't care whether it was Pei Zion or someone else, it was about Xiaowai, and she would rather seek the skin of a tiger to keep her child safe. She sent photos of the banquet that day to Pei Zion. Pei Zion sent the photo to his subordinates, made a phone call and gave some instructions. Xiaoling asked, "What are you going to do?" Pei Zion said gently, "It's very simple, process these photos, hire a group of trolls, and tell facts that are completely different from those in the news. This is the first step. Wait. Once the two sides quarrel, things will be much easier to handle, and the people will take the initiative to explore the truth. There are so many people present, and paper can't cover up the fire." Xiaoling nodded in understanding. Looking at the confident look of the man in front of her, she suddenly discovered something. "You came here specially to help me, any souvenirs are all excuses." This man is always like this. Even if there is a huge problem in front of her, it is also understated, as if it can be easily resolved into the invisible. For a moment, she felt sour in her heart. "If you're moved, why not treat me to dinner?" Pei Zion smiled. What he wants is this effect, to save her from danger, and then take advantage of the opportunity to get in when the atmosphere is just right. Just as she was about to nod in agreement, suddenly, a small head popped up from behind her. "Who are you?" a child asked in a sweet voice. "Pei Zion." Why is this kid such a nuisance to the scenery? However, he had long known through the investigation reports of his subordinates that the child in front of him was the treasure in Xiaoling's heart. Anyone who can't get along with this child can't get along with her. Therefore, no matter how much resentment he had in his heart, he could only endure it. He knelt down to look at Xiao Hui and said in a gentle voice, "Are you Xiao Xiaowai?" "Hello." Xiao Hui looked at him with some caution. Xiaoling lowered her head and said to the child, "This is Uncle Pei." The child hesitated and called out, "Uncle Pei." "Be good." Pei Ziyan was very gentle. Xiao Hui raised his head and asked Xiaoling with a confused expression, "Sister, sister, is this uncle familiar with you?" Pei Ziyan suddenly felt something was wrong. Why did this child call Xiaoling sister but called himself uncle? This is not of the same generation. "I am the elder brother," he corrected the child seriously. "Uncle," the child said seriously. Pei Ziyan. Looking at the two people, the older one and the younger one, who were not giving in to each other, Xiaoling suddenly wanted to laugh. To be honest, this was the first time she saw Pei Ziyan care about such a trivial matter. This kid was the only one who dared to contradict him like this. Pei Ziyan caught a glimpse of her smile, but he was not very happy. He gritted his teeth and asked, "What is his name?" Lilei. "Uncle Tu," Xiaoling said, holding back a smile. Pei Ziyan's mood improved now. It seemed that everyone was treated the same in front of this child. He no longer struggled with the child and returned to the previous topic, "Invite me to dinner." Xiaoling said, "Our temple is small and we can't afford to invite." "I do not mind." Xiaoling really wanted to tell him that she minded. However, considering the fact that he had brought souvenirs today and helped deal with Xiao Hui's negative news, she really couldn't really keep her face down. Over there, Pei Ziyan had already made his own decision. "Don't worry too much, just eat it at home." Xiaoling. She resigned herself to her fate and ordered the nanny to cook. The two of them were drinking tea in the living room, waiting for the nanny's dinner, and waiting for Pei Ziyan's men to solve the problem. Not long after, his phone rang and he answered, "Has everything been taken care of?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 673. Chapter 673 Silent Fighting. On the other end of the phone, the subordinate said, "Sir, our troll army has not been launched yet, and the negative news on the internet has suddenly decreased. In particular, several major portals and forums have been completely deleted." Pei Ziyan frowned slightly. Did someone make the first move? On the surface, he remained calm and only said in a deep voice, "Take good care of the aftermath," and hung up the phone. Xiaoling guessed that it was Xiao Hui's news and asked with concern, "How's it going?" Pei Ziyan looked at her worried face and comforted her gently, "It's almost solved." She breathed a long sigh of relief and quickly connected to the computer to read the news. Sure enough, most of the news reports had disappeared, and some were occupied by a large number of trolls. Public opinion gradually favored Xiao Hui. Thank God indeed. She raised her face and was very grateful. "Pei Ziyan, thank you." Pei Ziyan remained calm. "It's good that the child is fine. Now, you can eat with peace of mind." Xiaoling smiled and specifically asked the nanny to add 2 more of his favorite dishes. There was a flash of light in the depths of Pei Ziyan's eyes. It turned out that his Xiaoling had always remembered what he liked to eat. Unknowingly, the atmosphere between the two of them was extremely harmonious. No one noticed that Xiao Hui was frowning next to him, with an unhappy look on his face. He ran away with his short legs, ran back to his room, and found a micro-communicator from under a pile of debris. "Uncle, uncle," he chirped, "something is going to happen. Mom is with that Uncle Pei again." "Oh," an indifferent and cold voice came from the other end of the communicator, "Where is your dad?" "Dad?" The child's little brows furrowed tightly. "Idiot, Dad is not here." "Ha ha," Xiaomoyan sneered on the other end of the communicator, "a man like your father still wants to chase our Xia family's phoenix? It's better to let Xiaoling follow Pei Ziyan." With a snap, the communicator was hung up. The little child looked at the communicator in silence. "Yes, he is Xiao Hui himself," Xiaoling's biological son 4 years ago, the one who was taken away by Xiaomoyan. Over the years, he had been raised by his uncle Xiaomoyan. It was not until he grew older and his mother's punishment became lighter that he was anonymously sent back to his mother by his uncle. Uncle said it was up to him to bring mom and dad together. He also said that his identity should not be revealed as the torture on his mother has not completely subsided. Little Xiaowai seemed to understand, but he understood one thing deeply. His mother belonged to his father and had nothing to do with Uncle Pei. Who wanted to his mother from his father? No way. So, after discovering that Uncle Pei came to visit his mother, he immediately alerted his uncle. However, my uncle seems to be very angry with my father. Same, idiot dad. Xiaowai thought silently in his heart, how could you pursue a girl like this? Even when I was playing with Sister Cherry, I knew that when a girl needs you, you must be by her side. Dad, you deserve to be taken advantage of if you haven't seen your mother for so long. Woo woo woo. But, Xiaowai misses his father so much. I was so scared that Uncle Pei would abduct my mother and run away like this. Little Xiaowai was very melancholy and confused. I don't know what my uncle meant when he hung up the phone just now. Was he trying to find a solution, or was he not caring about his father's life or death? Oh no, Uncle Pei looks very fierce and serious. He doesn't want Uncle Pei to be his stepfather. Little Xiaowai lay in front of the floor-to-ceiling window on the second floor, looking and looking. Finally, I saw a man walking on the gravel road in front of the door. He was wearing clean and well-fitting clothes and looked very handsome and strong. Child Xiaowai was so excited that he ran downstairs with his short legs. In the living room, Xiaoling and Pei Ziyan were drinking tea and talking softly. They had not had a good chat like this for a long time, and it was rare for them to enjoy this leisure time. Suddenly, the nanny came over and said respectfully, "Miss, there is a visitor at the door, Mr. Li." "Mr. Li? Li Lei? Why is he here?" Xiaoling's brows frowned slightly, and her original good mood was completely ruined. She said, "Let him go, I don't want to see him." As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Li Lei's figure already appearing in the living room. In the shadow behind the carved door, there is a little child, tiptoeing away. Li Lei looked at the two people sitting in the living room drinking tea, and felt a twinge in his heart. His Xiaoling was sitting very relaxedly on an embroidered cushion. One of Pei Ziyan's hands gently touched her arm. She seemed to be very used to it and didn't notice it at all. These two people look like an old married couple. Fortunately, I just received a tip from my subordinates that Pei Ziyan was returning to the city today. It seemed that he had come back early to visit Xiaoling. As expected, Li Lei was very glad that he rushed over as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they were allowed to develop in such a good atmosphere, who knows what the consequences would be. He collected his emotions and said hello to Xiaoling. Xiaoling lowered her face and said, "You are not welcome here." Li Lei almost blurted out and asked, "If he is not welcome here, how can he welcome Pei Ziyan?" However, he knew that whatever he said now was wrong, and with his current love rival, he could no longer make Xiaoling angry. So, he just said in a good temper, "Don't be like this, Xiaoling. I heard in the news that the last banquet was very chaotic. This incident was caused by Li Rui. I took care of it urgently and came over to take a look." "You. Emergency treatment," Xiaoling sneered. If Pei Ziyan hadn't handled it properly, would she be able to sit here and drink tea leisurely now? I wonder what treatment Li Lei mentioned. However, she didn't intend to ask, she just said, "The daylilies will be cold by the time you handle them." Li Lei frowned and just said, "I'm sorry." "Get out of here right away," she ordered her to be kicked out again. Li Lei's feet seemed to be rooted and motionless. How could he let his beloved woman be in the same room with a dangerous man like Pei Ziyan? He said, "Xiaoling, I have something to tell you." There's nothing to say between us. Li Lei, it was Pei Ziyan who spoke this time, standing up with his tall body, which looked very oppressive even in the spacious living room. Xiaoling asked you to leave, so don't stay here to cause trouble for you anymore. Li Lei was not intimidated by him. What kind of storms had he not experienced? He looked directly at Pei Ziyan without giving in. His strong figure was not inferior to the man opposite him at all. He was also full of violent feelings like a storm. I'm talking to Xiaoling, it's not your turn to interrupt. Two men were silently confronting each other, fighting in mid-air with their eyes on each other, and the war was about to break out. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 674. Chapter 674, Everyone has their own thoughts. Xiaoling looked at them nervously. In the shadow beside the door, a little child also looked at them nervously. Xiao Hui was afraid that his father would be defeated, so he cheered him hard in his heart. However, the two men were in a stalemate, and neither of them had any intention of giving in first. The little Xiaowei was unhappy and ran to the restaurant to take a look, then ran out and pulled Xiaoling's hand. Sister, sister, I'm hungry. The voice was soft and waxy as a child's. Xiaoling is quite worried about the two men fighting. However, in the vastness of the world, Xiao Xiaowei is not as big as Xiao Xiaowei. She said softly to Xiao Hui, "Are you hungry? Come on, my sister will take you to dinner." Speaking, he took the child's hand and walked towards the restaurant. Although the two men were confronting each other, they were very sensitive to her movements. When they saw her leaving with the child, they unanimously gave up the confrontation, glared at each other fiercely, and rushed to follow Xiaoling. Dining room. The table is full of delicacies. The nanny cooked a lot of dishes, including some of Pei Ziyan's favorite dishes that Xiaoling specially ordered. Pei Ziyan sat down next to Xiaoling and said seemingly unintentionally, "Xiaoling, you always remember what I like to eat?" The tone of voice is gentle and refined. But it stung Li Lei's heart. Even Xiaoling raised her head and glanced at him, knowing that he was deliberately irritating Li Lei, so she bit her lip but did not make a sound. Just let Li Lei retreat when he sees the difficulty. However, Li Lei had no intention of retreating. He didn't even follow Xiaoling's eviction order, but sat down on the other side of her. On the side, the little Xiao Hui looked at him, then at Xiaoling and Pei Ziyan, and sat aggrievedly opposite Xiaoling, between Pei Ziyan and Li Lei. Very weird ranking. The nanny served everyone a meal, and the set of bone china tableware was beautiful and elegant. Li Lei picked up the bowl and chopsticks and glanced at the dining table casually. "This jade lettuce dish and this charcoal grilled scallop dish are my favorites." "Xiaoling, I can't help you remember. When will you come to my place? Go, I'll make you your favorite dishes and desserts." Xiaoling was slightly stunned. If he hadn't said it, she would have really forgotten that there were many Li Lei's favorite dishes on the table. I don't know since when, every meal of hers will be paired with some of his favorite flavors. Over time, it has become a habit, and you can't even notice it unless someone reminds you. Looking at her stunned expression, Pei Ziyan's eyes darkened slightly. Over there, Xiaoling's expression soon became normal. She took a large piece of jade lettuce with chopsticks and gave it to Xiao Hui. She said softly, "This is your favorite dish. Eat more, be good." Xiao Hui looked at her aggrievedly. When did he like this dish? What he obviously hates eating most is vegetables. The child's eyes flickered, and when he was about to say something, Xiaoling glared back. Pei Ziyan was well dressed and cutting the veal steak on the plate with graceful movements. He looked at Xiao Hui lowering his head to eat the food and half smiled. It turns out that Xiao Hui likes to eat them. "Little Xiaowei, do you also like to eat scallops?" Speaking, he freed his hand and specially picked up a large piece of scallop for Xiao Hui. This is really Xiao Hui's favorite dish. At the moment of delicious food, the little child couldn't resist the temptation. He looked at his father sitting next to him, then at the food on the plate, and made a decisive choice, to eat hard. The look in Li Lei's eyes dimmed. It turns out that Xiaoling is really not preparing for herself, but for a child who is not related by blood. He felt very sad and kept eating in silence, even forgetting to pick up the vegetables, and just finished a large bowl of white rice. Xiaoling felt very distressed when she saw this. She originally thought she could ignore it, but found that she couldn't do it anyway. She couldn't help but take a large piece of jade lettuce from the plate and put it into Li Lei's bowl, and said coldly, "Eat." Li Lei raised his head and looked at her with some surprise and a hint of surprise. Xiaoling has already turned away. Pei Xian was unhappy in his heart, but on the surface he was smiling, a big boss of Tianyi and the heir of the Li family. Since he comes here to eat free rice, people who don't know think that Xiaoling is abusing the guests, he said. At the same time, he cut a small piece of steak with a knife and put it into Xiaoling's bowl. This steak is very soft and medium rare. Xiaoling, I remember you like it very much. Xiaoling looked at the sudden addition of something in the bowl, opened her mouth, and wanted to say something. However, she said nothing in the end and ate the steak bit by bit. Li Lei looked at their tender and affectionate expressions, and the emerald lettuce stem stuck in his throat, making it difficult to swallow. The atmosphere at the dinner table was extremely strange. Xiao Hui raised his head and looked at the three adults. Suddenly, he said to Li Lei in a coquettish voice, "Uncle Li, you said last time that you would take me to your house to see Ermao. Does that still count?" Li Lei suddenly came to his senses. Yes, he still has 2 hairs. You can also use Ermao to seduce the cute little creature Xiaowai. It counts, of course it counts, he said. Xiaoling was not happy, however. Li Lei, don't kidnap my child. I remember last time you said you would bring Li Rui to the door to apologize. What, where are the others? He will apologize, Li Lei said solemnly, mainly looking at Xiao Hui. I'm really sorry about that, because I didn't teach Xiao Rui well. He had already found out what happened that day, and it was Xiaowai went to play with Li Rui, but Li Rui was impatient and scolded him. He also scolded his sister for using him to deliberately get close to Li Lei, which was too mean. Xiao Hui was angry, so he started fighting with Li Rui. Li Lei, who had never cared about his children, got angry and asked his family to beat Li Rui so hard that he still can't get out of bed. Even Sutang was frightened and cried silently while guarding the child. Li Lei was unmoved and said to Sutang, I don't care what happens to Xiao Rui in the future. Even if he is a dandy and a prodigal and needs me to support him for the rest of his life, I will be willing to support him. However, there is only one thing that cannot be done. I am not allowed to have with Xiao Rui. Ling can't make it, that's the bottom line. Sutang cried and said, what does such a young child know? It's my fault that I didn't teach him well. Looking at Sutang's sad look, Li Lei couldn't continue to say harsh words. In short, the child had been punished, so he was allowed to stay with his mother to recuperate. Now, after being mentioned by Xiaoling, she remembered that she still owed Xiao Hui an apology. After a while, I will bring him and apologize to you in person, Li Lei said. After a while, Xiaoling sneered, since you're not sincere, you better not come. Xiao Rui was beaten by me, Li Lei said. He is still lying on the bed and can't get up. Xiaoling, if you don't believe it, I can take you and Xiao Hui to see it. Xiao Hui looked at Li Lei steadily and then at Xiaoling. Sister, please take me to Uncle Li's house in a while, okay? He asked very innocently, using his cuteness. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 675. Chapter 675, Keep Me Company. Xiaoling didn't expect her child to make such a request, and her eyebrows furrowed slightly. Li Lei, on the other hand, struck while the iron was hot and smiled warmly, Xiao Shea, why, my sister loves you the most, how could she refuse your request? Pick a day with nice weather, and uncle will pick you up to play. You can see Ermao and the beautiful big garden. She originally lived in an apartment because she rented next door. In fact, that apartment is not his permanent residence. He has a large villa in another wealthy area of the city, and Ermao usually likes to stay there. Xiaoling did not give him face, sister doesn't want to go. Xiao Hui's face fell. Pei Ziyan put a piece of meat into Xiao Hui's bowl and comforted him in a gentle voice, like leopards. Uncle Pei will take you and your sister to the zoo. Shea Wai was even more unhappy. Wasn't this pushing his sister and Uncle Li further and further away? He blinked his eyes and said with a cute look on his face, I want to see Ermao. Sister, if you don't want to go, just let me go alone, okay. He was sure that his sister would not trust him to go alone. Uncle's place. Sure enough, Xiaoling said, no. His little face was filled with tears, and he was silently pulling at the vegetable leaves. Lilei said, it's not a big deal to go and have a look. Xiaoling put down her chopsticks and looked at him, have you finished eating? You can leave after you finish eating. Lilei fell silent and ate in silence. Pei Ziyan saw this, a smile appeared on his lips, and he ate in silence. The four people at the table were eating dinner with their own thoughts. Xiaoling wanted to get these two great gods away and ate quickly. However, the two people didn't seem to be in a hurry, and one ate more slowly than the other. Xiao Hui looked at this, then that, and ate slowly. Xiaoling couldn't bear it anymore and said to Xiao Hui, children, don't put off eating like this, it's not good for your stomach. Move quickly, the nanny has to clear the table and wash the dishes. Oh, Xiao Hui responded dully, still pulling at the vegetable leaves slowly. The food is not to your liking, Xiaoling asked. No, Xiao Hui drooped his head, I want to see Ermao. Xiaoling almost sighed. Why is this child so stupid? He must read Ermao when he hears it. How can he be so easy to deceive? Sister will take you to the zoo tomorrow, Xiaoling said. Anyway, it depends on whether there are Ermao and whether there are leopards. It is estimated that the child will be fresh for a while and will pass. I'll go with you, Pei Ziyan said tenderly. Lilei raised his head and looked at him with a stern face. Pei Ziyan acted as if there was no one around. I'll tell someone to inform the zoo and clear the place tomorrow so that Xiao Shaowai can see enough. Shaowai said, no, I want to see Ermao. Pei Ziyan. Why is this naughty kid so naughty? Xiaoling also had a headache. She put down her bowl and chopsticks and said, then you eat slowly. My sister is going upstairs. She left the group behind and was about to leave. She didn't want to spoil her child. She could agree to some conditions, but she absolutely couldn't agree to some. Xiaoling. Xiaoling, the two men called her at the same time. She didn't want to pay attention to it at all. She just thought it was a mess and walked away without looking back. Seeing her leaving, the two men felt that there was no point in staying any longer, so they each tried to please Xiao Hui and supervised each other before leaving her house. Xiao Hui reluctantly waved his paws at them to say goodbye, mainly to Lilei. This idiot dad can't even date a girl, he's so stupid. Xiao Shaowai sighed melancholy and walked step by step toward the house with his short legs. How on earth should he convince his sister to go see Ermao? He returned to the house, playing with his little bear toy, and suddenly a plan came to his mind. Children can be forgiven no matter what mistakes they make. On a sunny day, Xiao Hui put on his best clothes and went out without being noticed by the nanny. I got a taxi smoothly, reported the address of Lilei's family villa, and arrived at my destination. Uncle Li, I'm at your door, he called Lilei in an innocent tone. Lilei was shocked. How did you get here? He quickly said, stand at the door and don't move, uncle will pick you up. he hung up the phone and hurried home from Tianyi. Xiao Hui sighed inwardly, glanced at the serious guard, walked away a few steps obediently, and sat under the shade of a big tree to wait for someone. Is it easy for him to win over his parents? He is also worried about it. After waiting for a short time, Li Lei arrived. Seeing that the child was clean and uninjured, Li Lei breathed a sigh of relief. Why did you come here alone? What if you encounter a bad person? Don't do this next time. The little child felt warm in his heart. After all, it was his biological father who was worried about his safety. He nodded and said, well, not anymore. Li Lei touched his head and asked, does your sister know you are coming? Xiaowai shook his head. I was afraid that my sister wouldn't let me watch Er Mao, so I didn't tell her. Uncle Li, when I finish watching Er Mao, you can call my sister and she will come to pick me up. Li Lei said, okay. He took the child into the house. The villa is very large, with beautifully designed interior space and an elegant atmosphere everywhere. Xiao Hui looked around curiously and asked Li Lei, Uncle Li, is this your villa? Yes, Li Lei said, what's wrong? Xiao Hui tilted his head, the feeling Uncle Li gives me is different from the feeling this villa gives me. This villa seems to be a girl's house. Li Lei was a little surprised. Is this child so sharp? I decorated this villa suddenly, a voice was heard saying lightly. Xiao Hui turned around and saw a woman wearing a lavender dress with delicate and beautiful makeup. But for some reason, Xiaowai didn't like her very much at first sight. This is Aunt Sutang, Li Lei introduced to Xiao Hui. This is Aunt Sutang? The uncle said that there were several bad women around Dad, and the number one among them was Aunt Sutang. I heard that she was Li Rui's mother. Xiao Hui's heart was ringing with alarm bells, but on the surface he looked even cuter, smiling sweetly. Hello, Aunt Sutang. Sutang looked at Xiao Hui with a trace of scrutiny and smiled slightly. Hello. He turned his head calmly and said softly to Li Lei, whose child is this? So cute. Are you tired holding him? Put it down, I'll ask the nanny to prepare some snacks for the child. Li Lei said, his name is Xiaowai. He is the child adopted by Xiaoling. He came to see Er Mao. Sutang, I will tell Xiaoling to pick up the child and let her have dinner by the way. You. He understood that Sutang liked him. It won't be pleasant to see Xiaoling, but I still have to say something. If you don't want to see Xiaoling, just avoid it. Sutang's smile dimmed a bit. His words are very well educated. How could it be? It's obviously because of me that you and Miss Ye have so many misunderstandings. I am happy that she can come, and I will keep her company. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 676. Chapter 676 Meeting Mao for the first time. Li Lei waited up and said, no need. Xiaoling is still angry with him, and seeing Sutang will easily add fuel to the fire. If the two women quarrel by then, the excitement will be great. Hearing this, Sutang lowered his head, remained silent for a moment, and then said softly, okay. Li Lei looked at her lonely look and felt a little unbearable, so he comforted her a few words. Sutang then suggested, then, let Xiao Rui come out to accompany Xiao Hui. If there is any unsolvable grudge between the two children, just leave it out and don't always be at war with each other. These words spoke to Li Lei's heart. In the future, if he wants to marry Xiaoling, Xiao Hui will become his child sooner or later, and Li Rui will also be his nominal child. If the two children cannot coexist peacefully, there may be big problems. He looked down at the little Xiaowai and asked warmly, can I let Xiaorui play with you for a while? Xiao Hui raised his head, looking cute and innocent. Does he want to apologize to me? Li Lei then remembered that Li Rui also owed Xiao Hui an apology and scolded his sister. How could it be so easy to get through? Xiao Hui, a kid who looks harmless, is very vindictive. He will apologize to you, Li Lei said. Uncle Li also wants to apologize to you for not teaching Xiao Rui well enough to let him say such things. Don't tell your sister, okay? Looking at Xiao Ling's look, she probably didn't know what Li Rui had scolded her, otherwise he would not have been allowed in before. Xiao Hui tilted his head slightly and did not agree immediately. Li Lei was very anxious and coaxed the child. Uncle will prepare something delicious for you to eat. Xiao Hui originally wanted to test Li Lei for a while. Stupid dad, who told you to flirt with women? Make mother unhappy? Still can't chase her back. However, when he heard that there was delicious food, his eyes immediately lit up, and he put all thoughts of tests behind him. Okay, it's a deal. It's a deal. Li Lei laughed and reached out to hook up with the child. Besides, Su Tang looked at the scene with a gloomy look in his eyes. Why should her child apologize to that bitch's child? However, the situation was stronger than her, and she had to give in. She forced herself to smile and said, I'll call Xiao Rui to come out. She turned around and entered the depths of the villa. Li Rui was pushed out in a wheelchair by the nanny. A few days ago, he had just been beaten by Li Lei. This was the first time Li Lei had beaten him since he was so old. The beating was so hard it scared him. All of this was caused by that kid named Ye Xiaowai. Mom said that the woman named Ye Xingling is also a bitch. He hated them so much. He will definitely avenge this. Let's see. He had a small face and apologized to Xiaowai under his father's serious gaze. I'm sorry. He was quite polite. Because, his mother said, it is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. She asked him to hold his breath first and wait for that Ye Xingling to come. Let them know who is the master of this family. Xiao Hui blinked his eyes, looked at Li Rui for a while, and then nodded, as if he was a young adult. It's good that you know you're wrong, and don't scold people casually in the future. Swearing seems so untutored, and, you see, after scolding, you still have to do it if you are beaten by me, if you are beaten by Uncle Li, or if you are in a wheelchair, I will feel your pain. Hearing the words no tutor, Li Lei's face turned a little dark, but that was all. After all, Xiao Xiaowai didn't say anything wrong. Over the years, Li Rui has indeed been spoiled and treated like a prince. It's time for him to learn some rules. Li Rui's face turned blue and white, and he wanted to rush up and kick Xiao Hui a few times. However, let alone the injuries on his body, even if his hands and feet were still intact, he was no match for Xiao Hui in a fight. Therefore, the miserable classmate Li Rui could only swallow his anger. Li Lei was somewhat relieved to see that he remained silent. He felt that the child was sensible and knew etiquette. Sure enough, we should let him and Xiao Hui spend more time together in the future. Li Lei took Xiao Hui's hand and said, let's go, I'll take you to the garden to see Mao. He then asked the nanny to push Li Rui's small wheelchair to follow. The group of people came to the garden. The afternoon sunshine was just right, and there was a slight sound of birdsong and the fragrance of flowers in the air. Li Lei pointed to a huge old banyan tree and said to Xiao Hui, Mao usually likes to sleep on the branches. Let's go over gently so as not to wake it up. Xiao Xiaowai nodded, and as expected he tiptoed over. The shade of the old banyan trees is dense, and the layers are layered and colorful at a glance. In addition, leopards are good at hiding, so Li Lei was a little worried that Xiao Hui wouldn't be able to find it. He also raised his head to look for it, ready to point it out to Xiao Hui. Unexpectedly, before he found it, he heard Xiao Hui exclaiming, wow, so beautiful. I saw the little child raising his head and looking at a place deep in the shade. There was a big cat with golden and colorful fur that was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes away. It was squinting lazily. Bunk. Xiao Hui found Mao before Li Lei. Li Lei was a little surprised. This child has such keen observation skills. Even Mao on the branch was a little surprised and moved his ears slightly. In fact, it woke up the moment they stepped into the garden, but it just lazily didn't want to move. How could it be threatening if the owner brought two children in? In particular, it disliked the little pea kid named Li Rui and was too lazy to talk to him. The other child is unfamiliar. Just when Xiao Hui raised his head to look at Mao also lowered his head to look at him. Suddenly, I felt something was wrong. Wait, this child smelled of his master, and the smell of the woman named Ye Xingling who the master always dreamed of. Mao's ears moved again, and this time, he jumped down to the ground gracefully and lightly. Only then did Xiao Hui see its full picture. Oh my God, he had never seen such a beautiful leopard. So beautiful, her strong body is like the most perfect sculpture of nature, her rose-striped fur almost sparkles in the sun, her ember eyes are so clear and crystal clear. Xiao Hui was completely fascinated by it. Hello, he greeted Huabao softly and waxily, my name is Xiao Hui, can I be your friend? The leopard responded with a low roar. Beside, Li Rui, who was sitting in a wheelchair, was a little frightened and shook. Xiao Hui, who was standing opposite Mao, was not afraid at all. He stretched out his hand tentatively. You agreed, didn't you? As he said this, he carefully touched the soft fur of the leopard. Mao opened his mouth wide, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Li Lei was a little worried. Mao, although he understood that Mao would not harm the people he brought, Xiao Hui was his 120,000th priority protection target. If Xiao Hui was harmed even a little bit, Xiaoling would not let him go. Broken him. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 677. Chapter 677. Just wait. Mao ignored him at all. In some ways, my master is a fool. It stuck out its tongue and gently licked the child's little hand that was stroking its fur. The soft and chubby little hand was hooked by the barb on its tongue, and a trace of blood oozed out instantly. Mao retracted his tongue and tasted it. Mao, Li Lei was really frightened. The child's skin was so tender. Just licking it would leave a cut. It was cured now. When Xiaoling came over and saw that Xiao Hui was injured, she would definitely get angry again. Li Lei was about to cry. Mao had never licked Li Rui after living together for so many years. He thought the leopard was very smart and knew not to hurt the child, but he pulled Xiao Hui's hand back. Fortunately, the injury was not serious. Does it hurt? Li Lei asked nervously, and then ordered the servant, go and call the doctor. Xiao Hui shook his head. He grew up with his uncle in the mountains. He often climbed trees and dug mud in rivers. He played all over the mountains and fields, and injuries were common. This little injury is neither painful nor itchy. He looked at Mao with some curiosity, wondering why this beautiful leopard wanted to lick him. He tentatively stretched out his hand again. Xiao Hui, Li Lei was going crazy. Does this kid know what fear is? Xiao Hui ignored him and took 2 steps forward to get closer to Mao. Mao lowered his head to smell his hand. This time, instead of licking him, he rubbed his huge head against the child's palm affectionately. Li Lei felt relieved and was a little surprised. What a proud leopard Mao was. No one knew better than him, let alone the children outside. There were so many children in the Li family headquarters, including Li Rui, who was not turn your back on it. When you were looking for it to play with, it got up and walked away with disdain. Only Xiao Hui is the first child he has taken the initiative to get close to. And what about Xiao Hui? The little face with some baby fat was full of smile. I knew you would like me, right? He was born with an affinity, and there were not many animals who didn't like him. Er Mao nuzzled him affectionately again. Then he stuck out his tongue and touched his hand very carefully. This time, it was not a harmful, but a drizzle of sticky, saliva on the injured area of the child's palm. Li Rui's face turned dark when he saw it, so dirty. Who knows if there are germs? He pulled the nanny in disgust and asked the nanny to push his wheelchair back a few steps. Xiao Hui was not afraid of getting dirty, and smiled brightly. Er Mao, are you helping me heal my wounds? Thank you. He grew up in the mountains and fields, and when he knew that beasts were injured, he usually licked the wounds himself. Their saliva has the effect of disinfecting, sterilizing, and even stopping bleeding, which is comparable to a panacea. Er Mao half squinted his eyes in contentment. Well, communicating with the little master is easy. It just deliberately licked Xiao Hui's wounds and tasted his blood. It was basically certain that the cute baby in front of him was the owner's biological child. The poor master seems to be still in the dark until now. It's really too stupid. A sense of intellectual superiority arose in Er Mao's heart. It played with its little master for a while, and the family doctor arrived and showed the little master the wound. Sure enough, it was nothing serious. The little master needed it and played with it so much that Er Mao simply lay down and spread his body into a leopard skin for the little master to roll around and bask in the sun. Li Lei was dumbfounded. Is this still a cold Er Mao? This leopard was transferred, right? Also dumbfounded was Li Rui. Huh, why does the stinky leopard usually ignore him and let out a threatening growl whenever he comes a little closer, but why does it treat that wild child of unknown origin so conniving? Anger arose in his heart and evil grew in his courage. He suddenly became bolder. He struggled and stumbled out of the wheelchair, reaching out to pull Er Mao's tail. Roar! Er Mao turned around suddenly and yelled at him. The beast's deep roar penetrated the air, frightening the birds in the trees to fly. Li Rui was also frightened so much that his legs weakened and he fell to the ground. Wow 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 wow! He burst into tears. The nanny and family doctor rushed to see if the child was injured. Er Mao acted as if nothing had happened and lazily moved a few steps aside, as he thought the stupid humans were too noisy. Xiao Hui was originally playing with Er Mao. He turned around when he heard Li Rui's cry and was stunned for a moment. This Li Rui seems to be bossing around, why is he so timid? Er Mao was so cute that he actually made him cry. Classmate Li Rui, are you embarrassed? With this thought in mind, on the surface, it's still cute to go over and show some concern. However, before he could reach the child Li Rui, he felt a weight on his clothes. When he turned around, he saw the elegant and majestic Er Mao gently biting the corner of his clothes and dragging him back. Xiao Shuai was stunned for a moment, not realizing what was going on. He heard Li Rui crying hoarsely, pointing a little finger at Xiao Hui. You are bullying me. He didn't have the image of a wealthy young master at all. Xiao Shuai was even more stunned. Why did I bully you? Er Mao snorted from his nose with disdain. Really, this whole family is so stupid together. Don't get me wrong, it's not saying that Sutang and Li Rui are stupid. These mother and son are very smart. It's talking about their master and that stupid woman named Yexing Ling, and there is a cute little master. Little master, haven't you ever seen a rogue cheating on someone? This is because you haven't really come forward yet, otherwise, the dirty water will be poured on you and it will be up to you to see how you wash up. Er Mao deeply felt that the IQ of this family was worrying. It melancholy pulled the little master over for a few more steps. Hey, this big family can only count on its uncle Er Mao to protect it. Over there, Li Rui really started to act rogue. You able to grab 2 cents from me. You and that leopard teamed up to bully me. I don't care, you. You compensate me. What should I pay you? Xiao Hui looked confused. You compensate me for the injuries I suffered from the fall. Li Rui stretched out his hand, and a piece of skin fell off on his hand. You also need to compensate me for my new clothes. Today, in order to compare with Xiao Hui, who came as a guest, he specially wore his latest clothes. Nice looking new clothes. These clothes are very valuable. My mother specially found the best children's clothing tailor in the world to make them for him. Normally, he would be reluctant to let others touch them, but now, he fell and got dirty. Xiao Hui frowned. He was kind-hearted, but he didn't like others to frame him. Then just wait, he said softly, and ran away to play with Mao. Li Lei on the side looked at this fat and soft cute baby, and then at Li Rui, who was sitting on the ground and refused to get up. His head felt big. He was so stupid, really. Before, he only prevented Xiaoling and Sutang from fighting and let Sutang avoid it. Why did he forget that Xiao Hui and Li Rui were also likely to fight? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 678. Chapter 678. I cried because of my own wit. Li Lei was very melancholy. However, the mess that needs to be cleaned up still needs to be cleaned up. This matter was obviously caused by Li Rui being unreasonable, so Li Lei said, Xiao Rui, don't lose your temper. You fell down and got injured, and your new clothes are stained. It's not your fault. Brother Xiaowai is responsible. Be good and let the nanny take care of you. Take your wheelchair back, stop running around, and take good care of yourself. Li Rui cried even louder. It's all Xiaowai's fault. It's all his fault. Hey dad, you never hit me, but when you met him, you hit me. My injury is not healed yet. You let him come to my house to bully me. Oh, daddy, daddy. The child cried so loudly that his voice pierced the sky. The nanny and the doctor went to help him, but he violently shook their hands away. Li Lei only hated that this child was not his biological son, and it was really hard to discipline him too harshly, so he had to say, you are such a big boy, and you are still crying, and you are not afraid of being laughed at by Xiao Hui. Li Rui's crying paused and he said bitterly, he said he would compensate me. When did I say I would compensate you? Xiao Hui asked strangely. Li Rui said confidently, you asked me to wait. Xiao Hui was even more surprised. While stroking Mao's extremely comfortable fur, he tilted his head and said, I just asked you to wait, and I didn't say I would compensate you. Just wait until I figure out why I have to compensate you. I'll come back to you later. The child's voice was still soft and sweet. The words he spoke were not soft at all, they were coherent and made people speechless. The nanny and doctor on the side just wanted to give Xiaowai a thumbs up. As servants, they have suffered countless losses from this devil in the family, and no one can control Li Rui at all. Now, there is finally someone who can destroy his majesty. They really want to run around and celebrate together. Li Rui realized at this time that Xiao Hui had just told him to wait, but he was actually teasing him. His little face turned red with anger, and he pointed at Xiao Hui with a trembling hand. You. What's wrong with me? Xiao Hui was still soft and cute, not afraid of trouble at all. Li Rui was so angry that he couldn't speak, and cried at the top of his lungs, he bullied me. Wow. Dash. At this point, Li Lei, who was watching the fight on the sidelines, had given up on letting the two children coexist peacefully. He ordered the nanny, take young Master Rui down, take a good bath, change clothes, and coax him. The nanny responded and went to help Li Rui. Li Rui still sat on the ground and refused to get up. Xiao Hui had a look on his face. Why is this kid so playful at such a young age? If I leave this at my uncle's house, he will punish me by copying books. As he thought about it, he rubbed the soft fur on the back of Mao's neck and whispered, "The rules in your family are so loose. I'm so happy." Mao yawned greatly. Li Lei listened, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Xiaowai, this child, really, I don't know how he was raised, can make people laugh or cry with just a casual sentence. Why are his family's rules loose? But, the child Li Rui is not biological at all, okay. It is not easy for him to discipline him too much. And where is Mr. Li? He also deliberately indulged Li Rui. This child Xiao Rui, one day, Mr. Li called Li Lei to his side and said sincerely, just give him food and clothing, and let him live his life safely and smoothly. There is no need to discipline him too harshly. It can be considered a reward. Sutang's kindness for saving your life. In a few years, you will have a biological child. When the time comes, don't let Xiao Rui stand in the way of your biological son. Li Lei felt a chill in his heart. Having grown up in a big family, he understood what Mr. Li meant very well. The old man said that it would be fine for Li Rui to be a dandy. It doesn't matter if he flies around, eats, drinks, whores, and gambles. However, he cannot participate in the dispute over the Li family's heir. Outsiders are outsiders, and bloodlines must not be confused. The best way is to raise him until he is incompetent. Although this is cruel, it is better than causing trouble to Xiaoqiang in the future. Li Feng is a living example. If Li Feng wasn't so cunning and capable, the Li family's troubles would be reduced by more than half. Li Rui cried and cried endlessly, but in the end he was young and weak, so he was forcibly taken away by the nanny. Looking at the direction they left, Xiao Hui still looked envious and murmured, "Ah, I really want to have a father. After having a father, can I just do whatever I want?" The small face is full of melancholy. Li Lei's heart ached with pain, and he asked Xiaowai warmly, "Where is your father?" Xiao Hui looked up at him. Mao also looked up at him. Li Lei was puzzled, "What's wrong?" Xiao Hui sighed again, "Since I was born, I have never been raised in front of my father for a day, and I rarely see my mother. Fortunately, I have a sister now, but when will my sister be able to give to me?" Looking for a father, the logical relationship here is a bit confusing. Sister matches dad, what the hell? But Li Lei didn't care about these trivial matters and asked tentatively, "What kind of father does Xiao Xiaowai want?" Xiao Hui answered smoothly this time, "Be good to my sister." He added as if casually, "The new song that my sister recorded this time said that if you want to be with the person you love, we will never be apart. Uncle Li, this what does it mean? Wish to win the same person. That is to be a pair of people for the rest of their lives, growing old together, without a third party, and they are clean and tidy." Li Lei knew that his current situation was very bad, taking care of Sutang and her child, but that was what he owed them and he had to repay it. Call him selfish, no matter what, he doesn't want to give up Xiaoling, he just wants to marry Xiaoling and start a family, adopt. No, now he has Xiaowai, with this lovely child Xiaowai, a family. The three of them lived a good life. As for Sutang, she gave birth to a child out of wedlock. The relationship between the two in the future is just to share a son in name only, so that their mother and son will not live in the criticism of the father is unknown, nothing more. Little Xiao Hui pulled Li Lei's sleeve, "Uncle Li, I'm hungry." Unconsciously, it was getting dark and it was already evening. Li Lei suddenly came to his senses, "Uncle, go cook something for you." He promised the child that he would cook delicious food for him with his own hands. But the child said, "Why hasn't my sister come to pick me up?" "Uncle, can you make more food and we can eat together when my sister comes? She has been working very hard to catch up with the announcements recently, so she only eats box lunches. Lilei felt pain in his heart as he said this. Of course, he touched the child's head, I will cook more of your sister's favorite dishes, and we will wait for her to come and eat together. Uncle, uncle, the child pulled him again. Is there anything else? Lilei asked very gently. How about I learn how to cook from you? My sister is very picky about food, and she always doesn't eat her lunch properly when she is rushing to make announcements. When I learn how to cook, I can cook it for my sister. If he could make the same meal as his father every time mom eats the same dish, she will miss dad. Little Xiaowai cried because of his wit. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 679. Chapter 679. A Family of Three. Lilei also thought of this and was very surprised. However, I am a little worried. You are so young, can you learn it? Cooking is a laborious activity, and it is very dangerous to use fire and knife. No matter how much Xiaowai loves to do housework, he is only a 4 or 5-year-old child. People are not as tall as a stove, what if something happens to them? As if reading his mind, Xiaowai said, Uncle will customize a set of kitchen utensils for me, and I can cook directly on that set of kitchen utensils. I will also ask my sister to order a set, and I can cook for her. Have eaten. This kid is indeed very witty. Lilei smiled and said yes. I'm a little worried that I won't be able to pass Yaling's test. Xiao Hui said, I'll find a way. So it was settled. Lilei went to the kitchen to cook. Xiao Hui followed him unconsciously and said, Uncle, please teach me while cooking. Let's cook together for my sister. So, Lilei told him step by step how to peel tomatoes, and also told him which kind of rice to use to make the most fragrant and delicious rice. He also said that different ingredients should be selected at different temperatures in different seasons, and more attention should be paid to them. Xiao Hui looked attentive, listened with gusto, and his movements were unambiguous. The tomatoes he peeled out were beautiful and complete. Lilei looked at his masterpiece and praised it. It's better than what your sister did for the first time. Oh no, it's much better than what she does now. This child is indeed not Xiaoling's biological child. Look at the huge difference. Just know the cooking sells. Xiaowai was very happy to be praised. He clapped his little hands and said cutely, Uncle, when did you meet your sister? Can you tell me about the past between you and your sister? Lilei's hand holding the spoon paused slightly. He didn't come back to his senses until Xiao Hui reminded him that the food was almost burnt. There was a hint of nostalgia in his voice. Uncle and your sister have known each other for many years. She was like that at that time. Two people, one big and one small, were chatting while cooking. Who didn't notice that a figure stood silently outside the kitchen door? It was petite and small, wearing a very homely dress, looking at them with a complicated expression. Lilei said while cracking egg droplets, your sister can't cook, and she doesn't like to cook. At that time, I thought, fortunately I like it, and fortunately the food I made is delicious. I can cook it in the future, give it to her for the rest of her life. What happened next? Xiao Hui asked in a soft voice, why didn't you stay with your sister afterwards? Because. Lilei stopped beating eggs and was silent for a long time before saying, the world of adults is not as beautiful as a fairy tale. Maybe it is a test given to us by God, and I am still trying to pass it? Little Xiaowai seemed to understand. Over there, the petite girl lowered her head slightly. Xiao Hui asked again, Uncle, why do you add so much chopped green onion to this tomato and egg drop soup? Because your sister likes it? What else does sister like to eat? Li Lei's treasures are as numerous as his. Beside the door, the petite girl couldn't listen anymore and turned around to leave. Unexpectedly, I accidentally touched the chair and made a noise. Everyone in the kitchen turned their heads. Elder sister. Xiaoling. Two people called her at the same time. Xiaoling stood still, looking at the handsome face of the man wearing an apron in front of her, her heart rising and falling. He still has her in his heart, and he still remembers her favorite foods and her little habits in some home-cooked dishes. After so many years, it's hard for him to forget it. But, so what? In addition to cooking for her, does he also cook for Sutang and her son in his spare time? Xiaoling felt extremely sad as she imagined the three of them talking and laughing in the kitchen. When did you come? Li Lei took a few steps forward happily and said, you sit down first, Xiao Hui, and I will prepare the meal soon. Xiaoling just looked at him motionless, and then said, Li Lei, you kidnapped my child here just to get him to help you cook. I pestered Uncle Li to learn it myself. Xiao Hui quickly defended his stupid father. Xiaoling glared at him. Xiao Hui was innocent and cute, Uncle Li's cooking is delicious. Sister, after I learn how to cook it, I can cook it for you every day. I don't need it, Xiaoling said coldly. I can cook it for myself. Xiao Hui rarely spoke so fluently, I like to eat Uncle Li's cooking. I just had a few bites and it was delicious. Sister, if you don't let me eat it, just let me eat it. Can I go to Uncle Li's house for dinner every day? Xiaoling. Is this child a golden retriever? How come someone just kidnapped me and took me away? There was a burning smell coming from the pot. A few people were talking too much and burned things. Li Lei hurried to look, and then took time out of his busy schedule to say to Xiaoling, Xiaoling, wait a minute, the meal will be ready soon. No matter how much you have any objections to me, for the sake of the child, leave after the meal bar. Xiao Hui also said, look, sister, I learned how to peel a tomato today. He raised the peeled tomato high and showed it to her. Xiaoling saw that he was having so much fun, and she really couldn't bear to hit him, so she had to wait nearby. Xiao Hui's talent in cooking was indeed impressive, and Li Lei gave a few casual instructions as if he was decent. However, the child was small and weak, and even his hands were small. When peeling cabbage, he couldn't even hold the cabbage firmly. Xiaoling couldn't stand it anymore, so she peeled it off for him. It's true that she doesn't like cooking, but she doesn't want to see her children suffer. Xiao Hui was very happy. This was the first time for his parents and his family of three to cook together. It was so memorable. Looking at the messy battlefield in the room, the little child said happily, just wait. He ran out in a hurry, grabbed a servant and came back to take a group photo of the three of them. Xiaoling was not very happy. What's there to take a picture of? Xiao Hui said softly, today I learned to cook for the first time. Xiaoling couldn't say anything. Although her face was still expressionless, she still cooperated in taking photos. Xiao Hui stood between the two of them, holding Li Lei with one hand and her with the other, smiling brightly, looking like a family of three. The moment the servant was about to press the shutter, a leopard also jumped out and forced itself into the frame. So, the photo became a family of three plus a leopard, with a messy kitchen in the background. It was unexpectedly warm. Xiao Hui looked at the photos with great interest and said he would go back and frame them. Someone has helped them put the food on the plate and serve it to the table. Xiaoling ate in silence. It had been a long time since she had tasted Li Lei's cooking skills. As the taste brought back many memories from the past, her expression showed a bit of sadness. Li Lei didn't speak much, he just looked at her tenderly. Xiao Hui seemed carefree by himself, chattering non-stop, and the atmosphere at the dinner table did not seem awkward at all. Except. Suddenly, a little boy was pushed in a wheelchair and appeared in front of everyone. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 680. Chapter 680. Who is the hostess? Xia Rui Li Lei saw him first. Li Rui sat in a wheelchair and stared at the two adults and a child in the restaurant. I saw the man wearing a casual top at home, with a strong figure and a handsome face, the woman with delicate features and a calm expression, and the little child on the high-backed chair next to him was waving his short legs some willfully, with a happy and cute smile on his face. Even Er Mao, who was always polite to others, lay lazily like a pet. Li Rui was so jealous that he almost went crazy. Sure enough, his mother was right. As long as the mother and son were not present, that annoying woman and her annoying son would take advantage of it. Li Rui urged the nanny to speed up the wheelchair, came to them, and said to Li Lei, "Dad, I'm hungry and want to eat." Li Lei glanced at Xiaoling and Xiaohui, and said gently, "Xiao Rui, doesn't the nanny deliver meals to your room on time?" These days, Li Rui is injured and has limited mobility, and he especially doesn't like to come to the restaurant by himself. They always ask the nanny to deliver meals to the room, and they are often picky about the dishes. "I want to eat here today," Li Rui was very domineering. Many people in the Li family are in awe of Li Lei, but Li Rui is not, because this father is very indulgent to him and rarely gets angry with him. Now, seeing his father with other women and children, Li Rui deeply felt that his status was threatened. Li Lei frowned unnoticeably. "Good boy, Aunt Xiaoling is here today, so Dad can't eat with you." "Who is she?" Li Ruke was about to say something ugly, but when he caught a glimpse of Li Lei's gloomy face and remembered the injury on his butt, he changed his words wisely. "This is my home. Sister Xiaoling is like one of her own family members," Li Lei said. This time, it was Xiaoling who sneered. Their father and son were quarreling. Why did she get involved? "It seems that I'm not welcome here, so I'll take Xiao Hui and leave now." Halfway through the meal, I had no appetite at all, and now I'm even more disappointed. She took Xiao Hui's hand and left. Xiao Hui reluctantly said, "Er Mao Mao." Er Mao got up obediently and bit his sleeve with his mouth. "Er Mao, let him go." Xiaoling was very unhappy. Mao tilted his huge head and looked at the girl in front of him. He hadn't seen her for a long time. She looked much colder than before. She was no longer the weak and explosive person she was before, who could cry over the smallest things. However, it actually missed her at that time. Hard because there is no one to support it and it can only support itself. We are weak because there are people around us who can ask for help and rely on. She is no longer willing to rely on her owner, which is why she is so cold and aggressive. Er Mao whimpered several times in his throat, as if begging her not to leave. It remembered how over the years, its owner had always missed her while stroking its head. "Er Mao, tell me, what is Xiaoling doing now? Er Mao, tell me, did Xiaoling really fall in love with someone else? Er Mao, look at that cloud on the horizon, does it look like Xiaoling? Er Mao." Er Mao was already on the verge of collapse. It has made up its mind countless times that it must help its master catch Xiaoling again. Otherwise, it doesn't want to become the first leopard in history whose fur has been rubbed bald by its master. It's easy. It bit the little master's sleeve hard and refused to let them go. The little master was so whimsical that he turned to Xiaoling and asked, "Sister, can we take Er Mao back with us?" "I can't afford it." Xiaoling refused decisively and glared at Er Mao. "Are you going to let me go?" "Woo woo woo Mao." Xiaoling. This scene was too confusing. Li Lei said, "Having half the meal is not good for your stomach. You should think about Xiao Shui as well as yourself. Eat before leaving." "Okay." Xiaoling knelt down and used her hands to eat. "Break off Er Mao's mouth." "Er Mao, bite her," Li Rui said in his heart. However, Er Mao refused to bite her or let go of her words. In the end, Xiao Hui's pure cotton shirt with excellent quality was torn. With quick eyes and quick hands, Xiaoling picked up Xiao Hui and was about to hug him. Unexpectedly, she missed him and almost slipped away. She glared at Xiao Hui this time. Are you relying on someone else's family? Xiao Hui was very innocent and whispered, I have gained weight after eating too much. If it wasn't in front of so many people, Xiaoling would have wanted to slap him. Looking into those cute eyes, she grinned at her teeth, then grinned at her teeth again, and finally said through her teeth, Are you leaving? If you don't leave, I will leave. Xiao Hui just wanted to cry, Woo, does my sister hate Uncle Li so much? I hate him so much that I would rather leave him alone at Uncle Li's house. Over there, Li Lei came out to smooth things over. Xiaoling, don't be as knowledgeable as Xiao Rui, he is just a child. What's wrong with the child? Li Rui yelled, pointing to a painting on the wall of the restaurant. Did you see that this painting, the vase over there, and the color of the tablecloth, are all my mother's? My mother's house is decorated piece by piece, why should I let you in? He finally said this. Earlier today, Su Tang went to his room and told him that no matter what, he must let the woman named Ye Xingling know that everything in this villa was arranged by her, Su Tang. It's clear who the hostess is here. Now, looking at Xiaoling's slightly pale face, Li Rui was extremely proud, feeling that he had won a big victory and completed what his mother had told him to do. Xiaoling, Li Lei took her hand and said, Su Tang's mental condition is not very good and she suffers from depression, so the room is designed according to her wishes. It is elegant and quiet, which is conducive to her recovery. So, this is your common home? Xiaoling asked. No, Li Lei said, she has her bedroom, and I have mine. We just live under the same roof, we don't really live together. Dad, you're lying, Li Rui screamed, you obviously sleep in the same bedroom with your mother every night. Xiaoling's expression became even colder, and she shook Li Lei's hand hard, don't bother me anymore. No words could explain it clearly, so Li Lei simply stopped talking and pulled her upstairs. Li Lei, what are you doing? Xiaoling didn't expect that she would be like this, so she started struggling. Li Lei did not let go and stubbornly pulled her upstairs. The remaining Xiao Hui and Er Mao looked at each other and followed. Not to be outdone, Li Rui also shouted, asking the nanny to follow them. You are not allowed to let young Master Rui come over, Li Lei suddenly turned around and ordered sternly. The nanny quickly stopped the wheelchair and left Li Rui where he was. Li Rui was so angry that he cried and screamed and threatened the servants. However, the servants did not dare to go against the will of the real owner of the villa, and the wheelchair remained stationary. Xiaoling was dragged upstairs by Li Lei. End of this chapter.